theyeshiva.net.
Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. We're middle of the new sugya. Let me give a summation, a very brief summation, so you'll be able to halt mit, and let's just recall what we learned yesterday. The Mishnah on Daf Yud Amud Beis shared with us the machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Rabbi Yehuda says that B'dikas Chametz has a deadline. What's the deadline? The deadline is the 6th hour. If you didn't do B'dikas Chametz in the 6th hour, Erev Pesach, which means 11 a.m., you have to do B'dikas Chametz the night before. If not, you do it in the morning. If not, you do it at 11 o'clock in the beginning of the 6th hour, whenever the beginning of the 6th hour is. But if you did not, that's it. Shuvei nebaydik. There's no more B'dikas Chametz for you. The Chachamim said no. B'dikas Chametz continues. B'dikas Chametz continues till the night, and B'dikas Chametz, according to Tosfos' interpretation, continues throughout the whole Pesach, and B'dikas Chametz continues even after Pesach, so that you shouldn't come to eat the Chametz that you're not allowed to eat. What's the Svaras HaMachlokas between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim? So the Gemarah explained. Rabbi Yehuda is afraid that if you're going to allow people to do B'dikas Chametz Erev Pesach in the afternoon, when you're already not allowed to eat Chametz, the person may find Chametz, because that's what he's trying to do, and inadvertently he's going to put it in his mouth, because he's used to eating it. And he's going to transgress the prohibition of eating matzah, which begins Erev Pesach midday. B'dikas Chametz at night doesn't bother me. I don't care if you eat the chametz then, you're allowed to eat chametz. B'dikas chametz in the morning doesn't bother me. I don't care if you eat chametz then, you're allowed to eat chametz then. Even b'dikas chametz the beginning of the 6th hour, it's not an issur min haTorah. So the Chachamim are saying, okay, you'll get rid of the chametz. But after the 6th hour, it's an issur min haTorah to eat chametz from Erev Pesach midday. And thus, I'm afraid that b'dikas chametz will cause a michshal. It will cause you to violate an issur min haTorah of eating chametz. That's Rabbi Yehuda's shitta. The Chachamim were not afraid. The Chachamim are saying, you're doing b'dikas chametz, we're not afraid that by mistake you're going to come eat. Remember, we're not talking about somebody who willingly wants to eat chametz Erev Pesach in the afternoon, because that person doesn't need the whole Gemarah. He can go to the store and buy pizza and eat it Erev Pesach or Pesach. We're not talking about that person. We're talking about a person who wants to do the right thing, but people make mistakes. And for that person, Rabbi Yehuda said you shouldn't do b'dikas chametz after the deadline. So the Gemarah asked a big question, and that's the focus of this sugya, that it seems like Rabbi Yehuda is being inconsistent, because when it came to Chadash, when it came to the new crop that grew during the season, and you're not allowed to eat it till after the Karban Omer, which is Tez Zayin Nisan, when they used to bring the Karban Omer, right? And the Mishnah tells us that the streets of Yerushalayim were filled with flour from the new crop, and filled with oven-roasted grain from the new crop. When? Right when the Omer was Nikrav, you can already find in the stores fresh flour, which means they harvested it before the Karban Omer. So the mayor said, Hakad the Chachamim were never pleased with this custom. But Rabbi Yehuda says they were pleased. It means Rabbi Yehuda is not afraid that when people would harvest their grain and prepare it to become flour, they would eat it. Because if yes, Rabbi Yehuda should say it's Shaloi B'Ratzon Chachamim, like Rabbi Meir. So don't we have here a clear contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda's hashkafa, Rabbi Yehuda's perspective? Because if Rabbi Yehuda was really afraid, like by chametz, that you're going to be doing something good, fine. But by mistake, you're going to come to eat something which is prohibited, again, inadvertently, b'shoigeg, like by chametz, here it should be exactly the same issue. I'm harvesting grain, and in the process, I may eat a kernel, I may munch on the grain, and I'm not allowed to because it's chadash, it's before the Karban Omer. And yet, Rabbi Yehuda says it was fine. The Chachamim said it's fine. It's B'Ratzon Chachamim. So came a Rabbi, and he said, don't compare. It's a very simple answer. You didn't harvest it with a sickle. They only allowed you to harvest it with your hand, with a deviation. So there's a real reminder to telling you, oh, this is different. You're not using a sickle, you're using your hand, which is a big tirch. It's much harder than using a sickle. So this reminds you that you're not allowed to eat it. Where by chametz, you don't have that. So they asked him, what about, that's when you harvest. But then there is grinding, there is sifting. Here it's not anymore that you're using, you're not using a sickle. So he said over here, there was also a deviation, right? You didn't use a water mill, you used a hand mill. You didn't use the sieve in its usual fashion. You turned over the sieve, you turned over the sifter, the nafa, a sieve. You turned it over and you did it on the back side of it. So you still have the holes, but these deviations remind you. So mainly you can't compare chadash to chametz. That's what the Gemara answered. Comes the Gemarah weiter and says it doesn't make sense. The answer is still not good because we have another Mishnah that says that there were certain fields where you were allowed to harvest with a sickle. Remember, all the fields from which you would not bring a carbon omer, all those fields you're allowed to harvest with a sickle before the carbon omer. But you're not allowed to eat it. Over here there's no shinui, and still Rabbi Yehuda says it was beratzon chachamim. That means he's not afraid. Forget about the deviation. So we still have an inconsistency. This was Abaye's next question on Rabbi. And therefore Abaye introduced a new answer. And that is, you can't compare Chadash to Chametz. Chadash people are usually detached from. Meaning, they're used to the concept that Chadash is prohibited. Because for much of the year it's prohibited. Until Tezayin Nisim. Chametz is something that most of the year is permissible. A few hours before your b'dikas chametz, you were eating chametz. So therefore, we're afraid that a person is going to eat chametz. Why? Because it's something you're so used to, you're accustomed. You see a cookie, you see a bagel, you see a slice of pizza, you see a shtickl challah, you see a piece of bread or lafa, you eat it a whole year. And that's the reason why by chametz we're concerned. So we are concerned if there's a reason to be concerned. Because chametz is something you're so used to eating, so the mistake is more easy, more common, where chadash is badal minay. That was Abaye's answer. Came Rava and said, you're still missing a piece. You're focusing on Rabbi Yehuda. You're not focusing on the other side, on the Chacham. Chacham also pose a problem. In our Mishnah, they tell you, I'm not afraid you're going to eat chametz. You could do b'dikas chametz throughout Pesach. You could do b'dikas chametz erev Pesach in the afternoon. I'm not afraid you're going to eat chametz. But by chadash, Reb Meir, and we assume that the Chachamim arguing with Rabbi Yehuda in our Mishnah include Reb Meir because Reb Meir was the main disputant of Rabbi Yehuda. This is an important ha'ara. And therefore Reb Meir by Chadash says that it was Shaloi b'ratzon Chachamim. Meaning they were afraid that when you're harvesting your grain, you're going to come and eat it. That means they are afraid of this issue. And it's a kol shekei v'kal v'chaymer. Because Chadash is badal minei, Chadash you're detached from, and still they say you're not allowed to harvest it, and if you do it, the Chachamim were not pleased. Chametz is loy badal minei, and they still say that you're allowed to do b'dikas chametz, and we're not afraid you're going to eat it. So Rava says, you never dealt with this. You explained to me Rabbi Yehuda's position, and you made peace between the two sources, but you didn't explain Rabbi Meir's position. And that's why Rava introduces a new, very powerful svara, and that is the Chachamim feel that to accuse and to suspect and to be afraid that somebody is going to eat the chametz that they find by b'dikas chametz is absurd. It's absolute absurd. Why? Because kol atzmai mechazer alav l'sarfai meichel ka'achel menei. The whole point of b'dikas chametz is what? To destroy the chametz, to get rid of the chametz. Your whole focus is that chametz is not good. What are you doing? You're doing b'dikas chametz. Why are you doing b'dikas chametz? I want to find it and get rid of it, burn it, exterminate it, destroy it. Hu atzmai, the whole purpose, the whole mitzias of what you're doing is fighting the chametz. So I'm not afraid that while you're doing that process, you're going to do something which is the exact opposite, which is taking in the chametz, digesting the chametz, consuming, eating, and absorbing the chametz. By the chadash, your whole purpose is not to destroy the chadash. You're trying to make flour. You want to sell the flour. You want people to eat it. You don't want to eat it today because it's before the carbon omer, but you want them to eat it in the right time. Your purpose is not to get rid of it. So mela, by mistake, when you're handling with so much food, you don't realize it. We always know when you're handling with food, right? You take a bite. But here, I'm also handling with food. But what am I handling with food? I'm also dealing with food. The whole purpose is to get rid of the food. To be yitzayir, b'melech Chachamim say, I'm sorry. There's no logical reason to suspect that the Chachamim should suspect that you're going to eat it, and therefore they were not mevatel, the chiyuv of b'dikas chametz, just because the time of eating, the prohibition for eating has arrived. Therefore you could do b'dikas chametz a whole erev Pesach, and you could do b'dikas chametz a whole Pesach, and not only you could, you have to.
Why can't one say in a stronger argument, saying that we're not afraid that you people are going to eat chodesh because that's already ingrained in us? How much more so they're not going to eat chometz because it's a forest? which doesn't have by a Chodesh. So you can say much more strong.
Right, you're asking why don't they mention Karas? The answer is because Erev Pesach in the afternoon, there's no Issa Karas. Issa Karas only begins at night. But Rabbi Yehuda says that even Erev Pesach in the afternoon, you can't do B'dikas Chametz. That means his issue is not only Karas. His issue is the very prohibition of eating Chametz already stops him from saying B'dikas Chametz. Karas only begins at night. The 7 days of Pesach.
After Pesach as well.
Okay. After Pesach, there's no Karas and there's no Lav. After Pesach, the only reason is Shaloyavi La'achloya.
But inside, during the Pesach also.
During Pesach, yeah. And that's the Chiddush, that even though it's an Isser Karas, that's what I told you, that there's a contradiction between Rashi. Here Rashi teaches that Achar HaMoyed means from 6 hours till the night. In Menachos, Rashi says, like Tosfos, that Achar HaMoyed, that B'toich HaMoyed means in the 6th hour, and that you have to be by the Chametz B'toich HaMoyed in the middle of Pesach. So the Chaim Sofer says that once the Svara, the Gemarah is Mechadish, this Svara of Rava, that you're not going to come to eat Chametz, so then even Rashi would say that you could say that the Chachamim hold that you could do B'dikas Chametz in the middle of Pesach. Because this is such a strong Svara that you're not going to eat it, that even for an Isser Karas, we're not afraid. In other words, initially, the way Rashi ties the Mishnah, we thought that the Chachamim would only allow you to do B'dikas Chametz Erev Pesach in the afternoon because there's no Isser Karas. In other words, even if you come to eat it, it's not going to be an Isser Karas, it's going to be an Isser Lav. Rabbi Yehuda still says no, but the Chachamim say yeah. But L'poil Mamish, Rashi, and other places, Maseches Menachos, and that's, by the way, the Halach and Shulchan Aruch. The Halach and Shulchan Aruch is like the Shitta of Tosfos and the Shitta of Rashi elsewhere, that you have to do B'dikas Chametz the whole Pesach. And we're not afraid that you're going to come eat it. Why? Even though it's an Isser Karas, you're allowing a person to come face to face with Chametz. You're telling him, go look for Chametz, hopefully you'll find it and get rid of it. Isn't that Mamish feeding? You're putting the shark into his hand, you're putting the Chametz into his hand, and the answer is, the Svara, but since the whole Mitzi is the whole reason you're doing it is to burn it, so we're not afraid you're going to eat it, even though if you eat it, it's an Isser Karas. Where Rabbi Yehuda is so afraid that even if there's no Karas, he doesn't let you do it. L'achar HaMoyed is not an Isser Karas, but l'achar HaMoyed you have to do B'dikas Chametz because the Chametz that stayed in your house, Chametz Shavuot Pesach is Asur.
But that you might come to eat, because you're eating already.
Yeah, no, everybody holds, according to Tosfos, everybody holds Shema Yaveh La'achlai. You're asking an interesting question. Tosfos said the whole reason of B'dikas Chametz is you may come to eat it. So what are the Chachamim saying? You're not going to come to eat it. The whole B'dikas Chametz is because you may come to eat it. There's a difference. You may come. It's a good question. You may come to eat it as the pshat. If there wouldn't be B'dikas Chametz, yeah, and there's a cookie on my counter. I did bit, but there's a cookie on my counter. One day, Chalamayid Pesach, I come down. It's happened. It didn't happen to me, but it happened to people. You come down, yeah, and there's a cookie, and you don't even think. And you eat it. That's the pshat. That we're all worried about. That's why they did B'dikas Chametz l'chatchila. Here the word is, during B'dikas Chametz you're going to eat it. When you find the Chametz, now you're going to eat it. Now you're trying to burn it. Here they say not. Stam Chametz in the middle of Pesach, of course it's a chash you're going to come eat it. That's why the whole takana of B'dikas Chametz was established l'fi Tosfos. Shema Yaveh La'achlai. Everybody holds that. You understand?
Because you know you're going to burn it.
So that's why they said you should do B'dikas Chametz. They didn't want Chametz in your house because you may come to eat it. When are you going to come to eat it? Any day of the 7 days of Pesach. By mistake, you're going to come eat it. Why? Because you're used to eating Chametz a whole year. Here, we're talking about one nekuda. You're going to eat it while you're doing B'dikas Chametz. When you find it under the couch, you're going to take it into your mouth. That's the chash. This the Chachamim say, sorry. At this moment, we're not choishish that he's going to eat it. Why? Because why is he looking for the bagel? He's looking for the bagel to destroy it. Ad kedei kachnat. That's why I suggested yesterday that Rabbi Yehuda's mahalach could be connected with his mahalach throughout the Shas about davar she'eino miskaven, etc. Could be it's some type of beer because l'chayda it's such a strong svara that if you're just conscious of what you're doing, you're not going to come eat it. We're in the middle of Pesach. I'm afraid you're a little absent-minded. You come downstairs, you see you're used to for breakfast your little bread and butter. You forget and you eat it. If there wouldn't be B'dikas Chametz, that's why they made B'dikas Chametz.
How does Tosfos learn mechanical if there's a bita during Pesach, he's on bit or you've done Chametz? Does that trigger a new responsibility?
Yeah. Yeah.
The extent of that.
Yeah, the regular B'dika. The regular B'dikas Chametz you do in the middle of Pesach, yeah.
And the same thing, if we found Chametz,
You make a bracha?
Ooh, interesting question.
Adar Pesach, after Pesach, you have the same.
You lower and arrows.
If you
Yeah. Yeah.
found chametz after Pesach,
After Pesach.
you would be for chametz to Adar Pesach.
Yeah.
So what's the chance to the question about bracha?
The answer is, according to most poskim, in the middle of Pesach, you make a bracha. Before b'dikas chametz, you make a bracha. Al bir chametz. Yeah. You make a bracha. After Pesach, you don't make a bracha.
During Pesach,
You make a bracha.
would you have to do bittul again?
You can't do bittul in the middle of Pesach anymore. The Chachamim, yeah, that's one reason, because they were afraid you're going to come to eat it. There's another reason the Ran gave us in the beginning of Masechta. We're afraid that the bittul was not belev shalom, right?
In which case that wouldn't
Which
be.
will not
Right.
during the Pesach.
Right.
So then upwards,
So then you have to, yeah,
then upwards.
of course. And if a person didn't do bittul for whatever reason, then they have to do b'dikim in a Torah, because they have chametz in their house. They may have chametz in their house.
So you take on according to the Ran that was an insincere bittul. So
Yeah.
so you have to go through the same procedure.
Right. Right. Exactly. The same procedure you will do in the middle of Pesach. Yeah. There is the question, what if you find chametz in the middle of Yom Tov versus Chalamayid, right? We spoke, do you burn it? Don't you burn it on Davav? Do you just put a keli on it, etc.? If you did bittul, if you didn't do bittul.
It's a sincere bittul, then you don't word it.
Right. If it's a sincere bittul,
That he wouldn't come to eat it.
exactly.
Or we're still worried that he might come to eat it, even though he was Mavatal.
Yeah, that's what Tosfos said on Daf Beis, that we're afraid he's going to come to eat it, even if he was Mavatal it. And therefore you always have to get rid of the chametz. Right, another bedika, exactly, another bedika. Zog the Gemarah weiter. Yes.
Or Rabbi Yehuda, is it still necessary to flush the stocks by hand or use a sieve upside down or the hand mill? Is that still necessary?
Yeah. Excellent question. Of course, because the first harvest, remember there were two psukim. One pasuk said that the first cut has to go to the kohen. The first cut has to go to the carbon. Another pasuk said you could cut your harvest. So we reconciled the two, that if it's a field where you bring the carbon oimer from lechatchila, over there you're not allowed to cut anything before. So the only way you would be allowed to cut it is if you do it with a shinui, which is not called ktsira. So you have to use your hand in those fields. In fields where you don't bring a carbon oimer from because they don't produce such good grain, right? Which are three types of fields. Fields that are fertilized, fields in the valleys, and fields that need to be irrigated by hand. It's known that the grain over there is not of the best choice, and hence you don't bring a carbon oimer from there lechatchila. So therefore, in those cases, over there you can harvest the grain with a sickle. But in all other fields where you could bring the carbon oimer from, you cannot harvest it with a sickle till they bring the carbon oimer. That's what we explained from Rashi.
Grinding,
Same thing, it has to be with a shinui.
so that's not good to the Kohen.
Oh, you're saying loira baya that chadash badul minay, maybe the other things don't have to be with a deviation. Okay, that's interesting. That's possible, yeah. That's possible, yeah. Because it's not the ktsira, you're saying. The ktsira has to be with a deviation because the Torah asks it. But you're saying loita maskana, tchina, and arkada don't have to be with a deviation. Good order. A good order. Zog the Gemarah weiter. Reb Ashi Yamar. Around 16 lines from the top, Yud Aleph Amud Aleph. You see, the line starts mechazer alav l'surfer mechal ka'achel minei. So we had basically two possible answers to reconcile Rabbi Yehuda. The answer of Rabbi, which was refuted, that it's because of deviations, that was refuted, and the answer of Abaye, which was accepted, that Chadash badal minei, Chametz loy badal minei, right? Chadash you're detached from, Chametz you're not detached from. That's the one answer that was maintained, because the first answer about Shinuyim was refuted. And then we had one answer from Rava to reconcile the two Reb Meirs, the two Chachamims, right? That Chametz you were not afraid of because you're trying to burn it, and therefore we're not afraid that now you're going to come eat. Comes the Gemara now and introduces a third perspective, and this is Reb Ashi. We had Rabbi, we had Abaye, we had Rava, and now we have Reb Ashi coming in to the conversation, generations later, but still coming into the conversation. And Reb Ashi says, Rabbi Yehuda loy kasha. He's going to give his own answer for the contradictions between the two Rabbi Yehudas. And his answer is what you would call a balabatish answer. A very, very balabatish answer. That really is like very nice answer, very simple answer. And his answer is so simple, he's like, in order to be afraid that somebody's going to eat it, it has to be edible. When was the last time you saw people eat flour? Right? Huh? Okay. So in other words, chametz is edible. You're being by the chametz. You find a cookie, it's edible. You may put it in your mouth. But flour, what are you afraid? He's sifting flour. Great. What's the problem? Flour you don't eat. So Rabbi Yehuda loikash. The views of Rabbi Yehuda don't pose a contradiction because kemach v'koli tanan. The Mishnah says two things, kemach and koli. In other words, the Mishnah mentions flour, kemach, and koli is oven roasted grain. You take the grain, the stalks of grain, and you put it into the oven, and you roast it. So b'meila, these things, Reb Ashi says, are not edible the way they are, and therefore I'm not afraid that a person dealing with it and holding it and preparing it is going to eat it. And that's why Rabbi Yehuda does not make this gzeira. Kemach v'koli tanan. Rashi says, Kemach v'koli tanan, ve'ein elu ru'uyin la'achila. Now, there's a little question here because kemach we understand, right? Kemach, flour, people don't eat. Koli, however, kloyos, were something that it seems from different places in Shas that it was actually a treat. You would take grain and roast it. It was actually like a snack. It was called a snack. They served it at weddings. Ksuvas, right? Masachas ksuvas, right? They would distribute the kloyos. It was old-time popcorn, potato chips. They didn't have all these unhealthy snacks that we have today. They used to serve healthy snacks. So therefore, kloyos was something edible. So what does Rabashi mean? So the Tosfos read, as a result of this, changes the girsa. And he says it's not kemach v'koli, it's kemach koli. It's the kemach that's made of koli, because he doesn't have a choice. Because if not, Rabashi's answer doesn't make sense. Others I saw answer that, I saw in the Oiz of Adar, that there's two types of kloyos. Because Rashi's goydes kemach v'koli. So you have to give some answer. So I saw in the Biurim, in the Masifta Gemarah he brings from one of the Achrayim, that there's two types of kloyos. And that is, there's a sefer called the Rosh Mashbir. So the Rosh Mashbir says that there were two types of kloyos. There were kloyos that they would make, they would fry them in a frying pan. They were very edible. People used to like them. Here it was kloyos that were dried up in the hot vapor of the oven, and the way they were, they would be maintained, they would be preserved, but the way they were unedible. And therefore, the kloyos are unedible. So Rashi says it's a very simple answer. Don't confuse us. There's a reason, there's nothing to be choishish because you can't eat it, and therefore I'm not afraid you're going to eat it. You don't eat flour. And you don't eat this type of burnt, oven-roasted grain, roasted in the oven. Zok the Gemarah, a very interesting expression. They have it a few places in Shas, very rare. Hadir Reb Ashi b'dusahi. What Reb Ashi just said is fiction. It's fiction. Bedusa means it's not true. It's fiction. Why is it fiction? Hatinach mikoli ve'elech. The answer works once the tfuah becomes kali, once it becomes roasted to the point that it's inedible, then it makes sense. But meikara ad kali. But from the beginning of the harvest, when you're harvesting your grain, you come across kernels that you could munch on. You come across parts of the grain that you could munch on. People do it. So you still have a problem because at this point it's still soft and it's edible. Michael, maybe what are you going to say? Why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda prohibit handling with the grain at that time? Mela, once it becomes flour, once it's grinded into flour, and once it becomes roasted and it's inedible, I understand, but it doesn't make sense till then. The chitem, if you're going to answer me, alidei kituf, you're going to go back to the original answer, that since you harvest it with your hand and not through a sickle, k'der Rabbi, like Rabbi said, so now I'm going to go back to the question that we already asked then. That works if you're cutting it with a hand, not with a sickle. But we said that the grain that grows in the fields that are irrigated by hand and in the fields that grow in valleys, the grain fields and valleys over there, you're allowed to cut with a sickle without a shinui. And we explained that Mishnah follows Rabbi Yehuda. What could you say? Why doesn't Rabbi Yehuda prohibit harvesting certain grains before the carbonimer with a sickle when there's no shinui, there's no deviation, and it is edible, and you could come to eat it, just like he's afraid by chametz? If Rabbi Ashi was correct, that correctness can only happen at a later stage when it's not edible anymore, but it doesn't justify the earlier stages, and that's why Rabbi Ashi b'dusei, and that's why we maintain what we said, that the answer of Rabbi Ashi is fiction, and thus we go back to the answer of Abaya, that Rabbi Yehuda does not make a decree against prohibited foods Only when we're accustomed to eat it a whole year, and therefore by second nature, I'm going to eat it when I find it. Where chadash, where people separate from it much of the year because it's always prohibited. It's not always prohibited, but it's prohibited till Tezayin Nissa when you bring the carbonimer. So it's ingrained in people that this is forbidden food, even though at some point it becomes permissible. We're not afraid that a person is going to eat it. A Jew knows that Chadash is Asr. A Jew doesn't know that Chametz is Asr. It's only us, because it's only us 7 days of Pesach, not any other 7 days of Pesach plus afternoon or Erev Pesach. So we rejected Reb Ashi's answer.
Why is it mentioned here if it's irrelevant? Why is it mentioned in
Reb Ashi?
Yeah, because it doesn't seem to add anything.
Well, Rabbi's answer was also rejected. As I explained yesterday in our post-Shir conversation, that the whole point of the Gemarah is everything was recorded. The Hava, Mina, the Maskana, the Shittas, everything was recorded. This is Reb Ashi's Shitta. Reb Ashi may have even had an answer to his question. The Gemarah ultimately rejects it and says, Bedusa. Frag the Gemarah, okay. So we're back, we maintained, so Abaya came out triumphant. Chadash badul minei, Chametz loy badul minei, and Rava came out triumphant. Abaya explained Rabbi Yehuda, Rava explained the Chachamim, and we seem to be good. Everything is consistent, we made peace, we have now a consistency, we know the view of Rabbi Yehuda, we know the view of the Chachamim, l'cha'ira, everything is good. Comes the Gemarah and says, not yet. V'chal heicha de loy badul minei migazer Rabbi Yehuda. So basically, you're now giving me the premise that wherever people are not detached from something, Rabbi Yehuda is going to make a gzeira, like by chametz. But since people are used to eating chametz, Rabbi Yehuda is going to say, I'm afraid that if you let people handle it in a permissible way, they may handle it in a non-permissible way. That's the point. Because they may put it into their mouth. Is that the truth? But now we have a Mishnah, Maseches Shabbos. Very interesting case. You have a candelabra. Remember, we light Shabbos candles Friday evening. This is a mitzvah of the Chachamim, Divrei Sofrim, and the reason was, since usually people can eat their meal before dark, and there's no mitzvah to eat. But Shabbos is a mitzvah to have a meal, and remember, before Thomas Edison, the house was pitch dark, so you're sitting by a Shabbos meal, and it's pitch dark. So Chachamim said you should light candles for Oynik Shabbos, for the pleasure, for Shalom Bayis, for peace in the home, a good atmosphere. Should be a nice meal. People shouldn't trip in the house, lo yikoshel be'etzu be'evan, and so forth. The problem is you have a lamp, and the keli for the oil is very, very small. So you know it's only going to last a half an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and you want to sit. You want to shmooze, you want to learn, you want to fabreng, you want to zmiris, you want to do an Oynik Shabbos, whatever it is. But this is your menorah, right? So what do? So this is the description that you want to do, and Rabbi Yehuda rejects it. But I'm just explaining to you why a person would want to do it. A person shouldn't perforate, shouldn't make a hole. In a shvayferis, in an eggshell, shvayferis shel beitza means, the word shvayferis is like the word shofar. It means a pipe. A hollow channel is called a shvayferis. That's why a shofar is called a shofar, because it's hollow. Inside it's hollow, so the voice can travel through. That's what shvayferis means, a hollow tube. An eggshell, once you take out the yolk, it's a hollow tube, so to speak. That's why it's called shvayferis, even though he's talking about an eggshell. You shouldn't make a hole in the eggshell, v'yimalena shemen. And then you make a little tiny hole. You fill the eggshell with oil, v'yitnena b'tzad haner. And you place it above your lamp, where you have a little oil and a candle burning, but the lamp is very small. And this way, throughout Friday night, drops of oil flow from the eggshell into the lamp, and they fuel the flame. And you did this before Shabbos, so it's l'chayda very good. Because you want that the oil in the eggshell should flow, should drip, drop after drop after drop. You're not allowed to do this. Why aren't you allowed to do this? What's the big deal? What's the problem? The problem is as follows. People would sit at the table, and oil was a very, very common food. You need a little oil. There's a beautiful eggshell here with a lot of oil, so it's very natural, yeah? You take a little oil, you want to put it on your bread, you're going to take it from the eggshell. That would be forbidden on Shabbos. Why would it be forbidden on Shabbos? Because since this eggshell was designated to fuel the candle, so therefore taking oil from it would be hastening the extinguishing of the flame, so it would be prohibited. Rashi says Kol neir shebegemara hainu hakeli. Neir doesn't mean the fire; it means the keli, the lamp. Keli, crucial in French. Menatefes tipin dakois kshapsila mivaeres. It's gonna flow little drops. And the Gemara says, afilu hishal cheres. The chiddush is, even if this little extra container of oil is not an eggshell, it's cheres. Cheres is earthenware. You know earthenware? I don't know if you ever saw a real clay cheres, pottery that's made of earth. It's literally made of mud. You ever saw it? And it's baked. It's baked in an oven. It becomes very, very disgusting. It becomes very disgusting because it's made of mud. So once it's used for this, you would think a person is not going to take oil from it. That's what Rashi says. You may come to eat from it. To take this oil. V'tanya we learned, if you add oil to the neir, you're liable because of igniting, and if you take oil from it, you're chayiv mishum mechaber of extinguishing the flame. So Mele Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to do it because you may take oil la'achila, even though it's a keli mos. So the Chachamim say you're not allowed. Rabbi Yehuda matter. Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed, whether it's cheres or whether it's an eggshell. He's not choishish. What do we see from here? What does Rabbi Yehuda say? I'm not afraid people are going to take the oil. Now the question is, are people used to eating oil a whole year? Yeah. Just like chametz. It's better than chametz. Chametz, 7 days you're not allowed to eat it. Oil, there's never a problem with oil. Nonetheless, Rabbi Yehuda is matir. Rabbi Yehuda says, the person knows he designated it for the lamp, for the flame. He's not going to take it. By mistake, you're sitting by the meal. You're going to take a little oil, just like your b'dikas chametz. You're handling with chametz, you're going to come eat it. Rabbi Yehuda is not choishish. The chachamim are choishish. Rabbi Yehuda is matir. So what do we see? That there's something that loy badal minei, and still Rabbi Yehuda is not geyser. That's the question. Rabbi Yehuda is not geyser. So Mela, we have here a tremendous stira. Now, why doesn't the Gemara ask the same question on the chachamim? Same question. By chametz they said you're not going to eat it, and here they said you are going to eat it. The Gemara should ask the same question. Why are you asking on Rabbi Yehuda? Me geyser Rabbi Yehuda. You should say the other way. The Chachamim are not geyser. You see, they are geyser. So Rashi says a beautiful word. Rashi says, "Rabbi Yehuda matir afal gav the shemen hakal tedirin boy." Even though everybody eats shemen like chametz, but Rabbanan the Rabbanan leka lakshuya. Though kimna time of chametz we should do lots of mechazer alav l'sarifai. The Chachamim we already answered, because once we said that chametz nobody is going to eat because you're trying to burn it. I have no problem with the Chachamim. Chametz, they're not worried about. Why? Because but shemen, you're not trying to destroy the shemen. The shemen is here to give you a beautiful flame. You're going to eat it. That's a chash. So the Chachamim are actually very good because we understand why chametz is unique, that they're matir it, because who atzve mechazer of l'sarfa? Shemen is not mechazer of l'sarfa. Fakert, you want it at the table. You want the lamp to burn even more. So we're afraid you're going to come to eat. The question is Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda said chametz not. Why? Because people are not detached from it. Chadash, they're detached. But chametz, they're not detached. Here you have oil which people commonly and routinely eat, and it's completely permissible. And nonetheless, Rabbi Yehuda is not afraid. So we have here a problem with Reb Yehuda, the two contradictions. Okay. I just want to say, the Rosh Yosef asks a question. He says, how can you compare? Chametz you're holding in your hand, so you may come to eat it. The shemen you're not holding in your hand, it's an eggshell. But l'chayra, the answer for that is a person is sitting at the table, all the food on the table you're not holding in your hand. The gefilte fish is in a plate, the chicken is in a plate, the soup is in a plate. The oil is a little elevated. Okay, but it's in a plate. It's in an eggshell. It's in a clay cheres. So you're not holding it in your hand, but that's what food is. Food. So yeah, by chametz you're holding it in your hand for b'dikas chametz. But nonetheless, here also it's mamish near you. It's in front of you. If you're sitting by the candle, and the main place where they used to light the candles was where? On the table of eating, because the point of the Neiru Shabbos was that you should eat in a bright atmosphere. So the food was right there. So l'chayda, it's a fair comparison and a good question. The Rosh Yosef struggles with this, huh?
Eggshell is not in the middle of the air. It's somehow bound to the
Of course. It's not hanging in the air.
So, and people would have afraid to touch it.
You had to put, huh? No. They're not touching the lamp. They're touching the shveferes.
It doesn't matter. They're connected. It has to be somehow next to each other so that the oil.
No. You somehow suspended the egg.
Yeah, but
you could have.
Suspension is above the
It's above the nair, yeah. It's above the nair, and it's dripping into the nair, but it doesn't have to be connected to the nair.
But you would be, if you would touch, you would most likely would touch the fire or whatever. People would not do that.
No. Oh, you're asking an interesting question. If the Chachamim are right, they should aser every lamp with oil, because you may take the oil and you're chayav mishum mechaber. So the whole Neir Shabbos should be aser. The answer, of course, is they were never afraid that you're going to take the oil that's fueling the flame, because you see the flame there. The flame is going to stop you, because you know when you're taking the oil, you're mamish contributing to the extinguishing of the flame. But here, it's a separate. So there nobody makes a gzeira, because then the whole Neir Shabbos would be forbidden. Right? Nobody says that. Here, it's a completely separate entity, which becomes connected to the Neir. So you're not allowed to. That's the word. You're not allowed to. Rashi says it's chayav mishum mechaber because it was designated. It was designated for that, even though you're not really extinguishing the flame because it's a separate mitzias, right? Nonetheless, for example, the Rambam holds that the reason you're not allowed to take oil from the egg is not mitzad mechaber. It's mitzad muktzah. It's mitzad muktzah. This oil became muktzah because since the oil became designated to fuel the candle, it's muktzah for Shabbos. It's like you're not allowed to move around on Shabbos raw flour, because when Shabbos came in, the raw flour is not something you can use on Shabbos. This oil, when Shabbos, muktzah means set aside when Shabbos comes in. When Shabbos came in, this oil was set aside for what? For fueling the flame. But Mela, that's what the Rambam holds. But the Nikud is the same. Huh? Once something has a status, when Shabbos comes in, Shkiyas Achametz, like this, the whole Shabbos. Can't change it.
Does a person kind of skila if he takes?
Probably not.
So it's a grama, and yet you see.
Chayra de Rabbanon, yeah.
Yeah. So it looks like it's muksa, and it's not. So it wouldn't be Rashi.
Yeah, I don't think he means Benat Torah. I don't think Rashi means Benat Torah.
Rambam would argue about the level of this.
Yes.
So it's even a bigger Sedish than Rabbi Yehuda.
Yes. And Rabbi Yehuda's mater. Yeah. Rabbi Yehuda's mater.
It's very clear what they did. You have a lamp.
Yeah, have a lamp.
That's going to burn for 2 hours.
Yes.
Right? In order to prolong
Yes.
it, you need to put more oil.
Yes.
You can't put more oil in
You don't have place there.
The lamp doesn't have more.
Yeah.
So they put this, like it's basically like a timer, today's timer.
Yes.
They put this something
Yeah.
that will drip
Drip, yeah.
one by one.
Exactly, it drips.
So that,
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to burn, it's not
Exactly.
It's 4 hours.
Yeah.
So who would ever touch that? It's like taking a timer off.
You're judging reality of the time of the Gemarah by 2019 in America, when you have in your pantry 6 big bottles of oil. It didn't work that way. Reb Chanina ben Doisa couldn't find oil. She lit Shabbos candles with vinegar. You know, even in wealthy cities, every piece of food. Who's eating bread that mice left over in the house? You ever met somebody like that today? They'll kill themselves before they eat that bread. A mouse comes in with bread, another mouse goes out with bread, and you're interested to know if I can eat this bread or not, yeah? Who would look at it, yeah? Your wife would kill you, your mother would kill you doubly. The other way around. Huh?
That's from the olden days. That egg piece was far from the fire. It was like it's separated. It had like a little thing that led into the funnel.
A funnel that led into the candle.
It was part of the dish where the candle was.
Yeah.
It was separate, so therefore you could easily take it. Huh?
You wouldn't even think of eating it.
Exactly. Even in the middle of the year, if you find a cookie under the refrigerator, you're eating it. You throw it in the garbage. Yeah, there were cockroaches, there were mice.
They would eat that whole thing.
If you're starving, you eat. Yeah, we would also eat. Not to compare, but we saw in last generation Jews who suffered from hunger. Even those of us who had parents who have been through hunger in Russia or other places. Yeah, I know my father by the table, he couldn't understand that somebody leaves their plate empty. When he was a kid in Russia, he saw hundreds of bodies in the street, died from hunger. He couldn't understand that the plate is not finished. And that people just deal with food like this.
1982 in Grand Heights.
Irrelevant. I go into every grocery store, and there's more people today dying from obesity than from starvation. Our problem today is not too little food, our problem is too much, with Baruch Hashem, right? But there was a mindset. That's even in our generation. Kol Shekein then, when Chalno, it was a whole different world. You just always have to remember that. Nonetheless, Rabbi Yehuda is matter. Zog the Gemarah, Hasim.
When we have parents like that, also it affects the children also.
Yes, but this is not a psychology session, so we're going to stop here. We already did our therapy earlier in the morning. We start off with therapy and then we go to Gemarah, yeah?
It says that food is going to kill you. The lack of the food will kill you faster than the
Right. And for the Gemarah Hassam, a good starker Shaila Hassam over there, we're going to use a similar svara. We're going to say Hassam, the answer is Mishum Chumra, the Shabbos, Mivdal Bedili. You're right, but it's not a contradiction. Why? Rabbi Yehuda felt that Shabbos occupies a special stringency in people's hearts, and therefore people are separated from anything that's usher on Shabbos. Of course, we're used to eating oil and using oil a whole year, and it's not something that's badal minei be'etzem. But it's the Shabbos that makes it badal minei. That's the vart. It's not the cheftza of the shemen. It's the day of Shabbos, just like we explained before. That Chodesh, Rabbi Yehuda says you're allowed to harvest and we're not afraid you're going to eat it. Why? Because the cheftza of Chodesh is something that people are like allergic to because they're used to a whole year. Every Jewish child growing up in a Jewish home knows Chodesh you don't eat, so we're not afraid that when you harvest it you're going to eat it. So even though shemen doesn't have that status, because shemen you do eat, it's kosher, it's fine, but the day of Shabbos, there's a conscientiousness, there's a caution in the Jewish psyche to stay away from anything that could be usher on Shabbos. That's the vart. And b'meila, Rabbi Yehuda's taina is that when it comes to Shabbos, it's mivdal bedili, and we're not afraid that the person is going to, by mistake, take the oil because there's like this special caution when it comes around to melachas of Shabbos. Where by chametz, he is not afraid of this. It's Erev Pesach in the afternoon, and a person is doing b'dikas chametz, and by mistake he may put the chametz into his mouth. Why? Because chametz is something he's used to eating a whole year. The chumras of Shabbos, of course, he means because of what Shabbos became in the Jewish world, and also the penalties for Shabbos are so serious that don't exist when it comes to chametz. When somebody eats chametz on Pesach, there's a if it's b'mezid, there could be kares, but you could do tshuva for that, and then there's no punishment. Where Shabbos is an isser skilla, potentially if there's edim and asra. I mean, it wasn't easy to get an isser skilla, but the point is, there's an isser skilla. And it's so severe, so therefore there's a certain chumrah of Shabbos.
What if Erev Pesach?
If Erev Pesach is Shabbos, so then you can't do b'dikas chametz because la'ir haneh. You do b'dikas chametz Thursday night. You do b'dikas chametz Thursday night.
Do without tomorrow night.
No, we do it Thursday night.
Right.
Yes.
Steel dropped down to patas, it's sugar.
Yeah. Frag the Gemarah. Okay. So we're good. Everything is good. Rabbi Yehuda is settled. The Chachamim are settled. Rabbi Yehuda's chametz we understand. Rabbi Yehuda's chodesh we understand. Rabbi Yehuda's Shabbos we understand. Chachamim's chametz we understand. Chachamim's chodesh we understand. Alts is good. Everything is yasher v'yasher. So the Gemarah, let's go away from Pesachim for a moment. For Rami the Shabbos HaShabbos. I'm going to show you a contradiction between Shabbos and Shabbos. In other words, you explained to me that by Shabbos, Rabbi Yehuda is like, I'm good with Shabbos. People don't make mistakes on Shabbos. They're very cautious about Shabbos. Really? Let's look about Shabbos, and we'll see that even in Shabbos itself, there's an inconsistency both for Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim. Here we go, a new one. The Tanya, we learned to Braisa, Cheveld li shenifsak lo yehi koshrei. A person has a pitcher, a barrel, a pitcher. You want to lower the pitcher into the well, right, in your courtyard, and bring water. The house needs water. The kids need water. The problem is, how do you get the pitcher down? You had a rope, and the rope was connected to something. It was tied to something, so you lower down the pitcher, and then you pull up the pitcher, and you can have your water. The problem is that rope, nifsak, it snapped. It snapped, and it's on Shabbos. What do? Lo yeh koshrei. You're not going to take the two ends of the rope and make a knot, which is an enduring knot, which is a biblical prohibition on Shabbos to make a kesher shel kayama, to make an enduring knot that's going to last. Ella oinvoy, you just make a bow. You make a bow, and that's how you connect it, and you could use your pitcher. Rabbi Yehuda is much more stringent. Rabbi Yehuda says, no. Koirei chalav punda ipsikya. You have to take the ends of the rope, put one on top of the other, and then wrap around it a punda, a belt, or psikya. Psikya is a garter, like another form of a girdle, a gartel, a belt. Ubelvat shelo yanvenu, but do not make a bow. Do not take the two ends of the note and tie it as a bow like you may do with your shoelace. Take them together, put one on top of the other, then take a belt and wrap the belt around them tight and keep them together, and that's how you can do it. What's the word here? On aniva, a bow is permissible on Shabbos l'chayr. Rabbi Yehuda says you're not allowed to make a bow because I'm afraid if you let him make a bow, right, he's going to make a good, nice knot because he's dealing with it. The Chachamim are not afraid. They say make a bow, gesundheit. Kasher Rabbi Yehuda. So there's a contradiction between Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yehuda. In our brayse, he says you're not allowed to make a bow because you may come to make a knot. We said earlier you're allowed to have an eggshell filled with oil because even though you may come to eat it, I'm not afraid that from something permissible you're going to do something forbidden and you're going to eat it on Shabbos. Kasha de Rabbanan, the Rabbanan, same contradiction between the Rabbanan. By the eggshell with the oil, they prohibited you to do it. Why? Because you may come to eat it. On the other hand, here's the same thing. You're making a bow. You're making a bow by mistake. You may forget and make a knot. Exactly the same issue, like you may forget and take the oil to eat. So the Gemarah the Rabbanan like kasha. There's no contradiction from the Rabbanan because shemen b'shemen michlef aniv b'kshir loy michlef. Oil is exchanged with oil, meaning the oil in the eggshell looks exactly like the oil that you eat a whole year. There's no difference between the oil. So therefore, a person inadvertently could make that mistake. There's oil in front of you. You take that oil just like you take the other oil because they look the same. A bow and a knot are two different activities, and therefore they're not exchangeable one with the other, and therefore the Chacham are not afraid that the bow is going to bring you to the knot. The Rabbi Yehuda like kasha.
The same word as Khalifa?
Yeah. The Rabbi Yehuda like kasha. Rabbi Yehuda is not a contradiction. Time of the Rabbi Yehuda, because the reason of Rabbi Yehuda is you misunderstood the brayse. Lav mishum the gazer on niva atukshire. Not because Rabbi Yehuda is afraid that from a bow you may come to make a knot. Elo mishum the kasover on niva gufik shirehi. Rabbi Yehuda holds that aniva itself is a form of kesher that's forbidden on Shabbos. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda holds that when the Torah doesn't let you make a knot, it includes also a bow. So even though Rabbi Yehuda doesn't prohibit you from using an eggshell or a clay cheres to have oil that drips into the lamp on Shabbos, and he's not afraid that people are going to come to eat it because people are very conscientious when it comes to Isurei Shabbos. You're right, he is. He's not afraid that from the bow you're going to make a knot. People are very careful. He's afraid of making a bow itself because the bow is an Issa D'Oraisa. That's his issue. That's why he says you're not allowed to make a bow. Instead, take a belt and wrap it around the two ends of the knot. So the Gemara says, okay, granted, we're good. The Rabbanan explain themselves very well, that they're not hypersensitive to everything. They're hypersensitive when there's a reason to be sensitive. Chametz they're not afraid of. We already know why. Because you're doing b'dikas chametz, you want to burn it, right? Chadash, they are afraid of because we already know now why. Because chadash you may come to eat. There's no shinu, you may come to eat it. And they don't say that chadash b'dili minei. They are afraid that people make these mistakes even if b'dili minei. The egg, we know why they're afraid of. They're afraid of because even Shabbos, again, they don't hold like Rabbi Yehuda. They hold that you have to be extra cautious. They're hypersensitive. Besides by chametz, over there they're not sensitive, but in all these places they're sensitive. Over here they're not sensitive. Why? Because it's two different creatures. An aniva and a kesher are not the two same. There's a bow and there's a knot, and they're not afraid you're going to come to confuse the two. It's a completely different type of experience. So Mamela, we answered that. Zog the Gemarah weiter. Let's just see how Rashi summarizes the sugya, and then the Gemara does the last piece. So Rashi says, "Shemen zeh b'shemen dechol shana michle v'asi lemichle." Okay, sorry, Rashi summarizes it soon. Zog the Gemara weiter. V'rami the Rabbanan. I have another problem. The rabbis contradict the rabbis. Why? The Tanan, we have a Mishnah in Shabbos. Koishrin li befiskia avaloi bechevel v'Rabbi Yehuda mater. What does this mean? You have a barrel on Shabbos, right? And you need to get that barrel into the well to get water. So what do? You need a rope to attach the barrel, so you should be able to lower it and bring it back up. You don't want to lose the barrel with water. You want to have your water. So he says, koishrin, you're allowed to tie, dli, a pitcher on top of the well. Befiskia. Befiskia means, Rashi says, faishla shekarchin svivas shukayim. How does he translate it in a garter? Okay, it's a form of a belt. Fiskia, a garter, which is what we used before also to translate psik. We had before punda psikia, right? A belt or a garter. So here again, befiskio with a garter. Why? I'll tell you why. A garter you use for your, Rashi says you put it around your thighs, right? There's garters that men use, there's garters that women use. It's something you put around your thighs, your body. You're not going to want to keep it there because this is a garment. So mele, you're not going to make a kesher shel kayama. When you make a knot, you're not going to make a knot that's dear to endure. Mitzvah Shabbos or whenever, you're going to undo it and bring a new rope that's made for it. So therefore the Chachamim said, I don't care if you use a regular knot for this type of situation where you're using a garter, because you're not going to want to leave your expensive garter over there, and after Shabbos you're absolutely going to exchange it. And we know that a kesher that's not a kesher shel kayama, if it's made to be untied in a very short time, you're allowed to tie it on Shabbos. So therefore, we're good. Avaloi bechevel, but don't use a rope, because that you may leave forever.
On for a garter, Monsey Shabbos,
Yeah.
you could leave it that long.
Yeah, it's fine.
What's the purpose of the garter? To hold out the socks or something?
To hold up some of the garments, yeah. To hold up the garments.
Right.
Yeah. Avaloi bechevel, but don't use a rope, because a rope you may leave there for good. For Rabbi Yehuda matir. Comes Rabbi Yehuda and says, you're allowed to even tie the dli with a rope. Someone says, 1 second. Chevel demai. What type of rope? Ilay mechevel dalma, if it's a regular rope that you use for barrels. Rabbi Yehuda matir. Kesher shel kayamu, devade asal betule. This is the worst. It's one of the 39 malachas. This is a kesher that's an enduring kesher, because certainly you're going to leave it there because it's a rope made for it. So how could Rabbi Yehuda allow this? Doesn't mean a regular rope. He means a weaver's rope. In other words, a rope that's not made to tie a barrel. It's much more expensive. It's much more fine. So the Gazru Rabbanon chevel de gardi at chevel de alma. Yet the Rabbanon still would not allow you to use a weaver's rope. Why? Because you may come and use a regular rope. So we see here a contradiction.
Isn't the weaver's rope muksa? It's a special rope for a weaver. It's probably expensive. How are you allowed to use that?
It's the type of thing that you might use on Shabbos.
No, I'm saying
Even though
it's
special.
miyukid for a special purpose, and it's expensive probably because he uses it in this.
You're asking a weaver's rope is a keli shemalachta leisur. If it's a keli,
Yeah, I'm asking more than that. I'm saying it's something that's expensive.
I'm elaborating. I don't know how expensive. If it's a keli shemalachta leisur, so if you want to use it for a permissible purpose, it's like taking a hammer and using it to crack a nut. You're allowed to do that on Shabbos. So I assume you're allowed to do that on Shabbos. You're saying if it would be so expensive, muktzah machmas chesra and kiss, that a person like using a laptop to crack a nut, you wouldn't be allowed to because it's muktzah machmas chesra and kiss. The question is how expensive it is.
There's no rope that
You want to say that
Machmas
it's
Right.
not an
Kiss unless it's
expensive
from
item.
gold.
Right.
Something that in order to
Right,
force you to
right,
use it.
right. So the Rabbi Yehuda says you could use that rope. Not a regular rope, because then it's a kesher shel kayama, but this is a weaver's rope. So you're not going to keep it there. You don't want to tie it for good. Still, the Chachamim are afraid that even though the weaver's rope you will untie because you want it, nonetheless they didn't allow you to use it on Shabbos, right? Why? Because they were afraid that you may get confused, chevel de gardia to chevel de alma, because it's a chash that you're going to use a regular rope once they allow you to use a weaver's rope. So here we have a contradiction. Why do we have a contradiction? Because the Chachamim said before you're allowed to make a bow in order to tie the two ends of the rope, even though you may come to make a mistake and make a knot, because they're not afraid. And here they are afraid. They are clearly afraid. Over there, they didn't prohibit making a bow because you may come to tie a regular knot. And yet here, what did they do? They said you're not allowed to use a weaver's rope because I'm afraid that by mistake you're going to use a different rope and you're going to leave it, not a weaver's rope. So the Gemarah in, you're right, and it's not a problem. Chevel b'chevel michlaf. Aneva b'kshir loy mechalfa. One type of rope is exchangeable inadvertently with another type of rope. In other words, if you allow me to use this rope, I may use this rope, because I'll compare the two. What's the difference? Rope. But aniva b'kshira, a bow and a knot are two completely different activities, and therefore I allow you to tie it with a bow, and I'm not afraid you're going to come to make a knot.
It's the same.
You're dealing with the same chayfetz, but the activity is a different activity. The exchange that we're worried about is two different creatures. Here the exchange that we're worried about is what? A rope with a rope. Here it's a different, it's within a rope, but it's either an aniva or a kshira. Take a look in Rashi. Meshaninon chevel bechevel michlef, v'hashta itartzu kulu. And now at last everything got reconciled. Everything got answered. The Rabbanon gazru kol heichad michlef. The rabbis made a decree wherever there can be an exchange, wherever by mistake you do something permissible and inadvertently you could make an exchange and do something forbidden. Bein b'Shabbos, whether it's Shabbos, bein b'shar Yisurim or other Yisurim. And let's go through. Hilchach. B'chodesh lifnei ha'omer, gazru. Chodesh before the omer, you're not allowed to harvest. Why? During the harvest, you may come to eat it because you already have it in your hand. And once you're holding it, inadvertently, you may put it in your mouth. Next, the egg with the oil, the eggshell, you may come to eat it. Ait Shabbos, so what? But shemen is something you eat. The same is true with the rope. And therefore, they don't let you use a weaver's rope. Aval b'chametz loy, chametz there's no gzeda. Why? From the muzer of l'sarfa, because you're doing it in order to burn. Next, ba'niva nami loy, a bow they also don't mind. Why? From the loy michlafa. They're not afraid that by mistake you're going to come to do a knot, because it's a completely different thing. That's the Rabbana. So this answers the Rabbana. And they don't believe in the svara that we said that if people are detached from it, we're not geyser. Like Chodesh, they are geyser. Shabbos, they are geyser. This Chumrah the Shabbos. So what? This Chumrah the Shabbos, but we're afraid that people make these mistakes. Rabbi Yehuda, gaza b'chol milah deloi b'dilimine. Rabbi Yehuda, on the other hand, is geyser by everything that people are not detached from. If they're not detached from it, he agrees to the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say even if you are detached from it. Rabbi Yehuda says if you're not detached from it, I'm geyser. But he's much more lenient if it's something that people are used to being detached from. Hilchach, b'chametz, gazar. Why? Because by chametz, you're not detached. Aval b'chodesh, b'diliminei. Or b'chol hanach the Shabbos, b'diliminei. The kamach me'ba'neva, said you're not allowed to make a bow. It's not because he's afraid you're going to make a mistake because Shabbos b'dilimine. What's the pshat? The pshat is aniva gufa is kshira. Because aniva gufa is kshira, so therefore the Yehuda over here is geyser. Okay. Continue Be'ezer Hashem tomorrow.
The bowl for food is the same thing. I mean, even a knot.
No, you're
Why
not.
are you allowed to tear them?
No, Rabbi Yehuda holds that aniv is an ism in Atayra.
When you tear open something,
It's not an ism in Atayra. Kol ha'makalkel and p'turin. Whenever you ruin something on Shabbos, there's no ism in Atayra. Destroying something is not ism in Atayra, unless there's a productive purpose, like you're making a keli out of it and so forth. So it's a different mitzias.
You shouldn't have a problem tying on shoes on Shabbos, double knots. Shouldn't be a problem.
The problem with a double knot is that, according to one shitta, the Shiltei HaGiborim that's brought in halacha, it's called a kesher uman. There's two ideas when it comes to knots. There's what's called an enduring knot, and there's what's called a craftsman's knot. Kesher uman and kesher shel kayama. Okay? The question is, do you need both to make it asim and atayra? Or even one? A double knot, according to some opinions, is a kesher uman. It's a craftsman's knot. Yeah.
Every 3-year-old could make a double knot.
Right, but it's a type of knot. It's a type of knot that resembles a kesher uman. Meaning, the idea of kesher uman means a effective professional knot.
Like a sailor's knot.
A sailor's knot is the real kesher uman. Right. Right. So the Shiltei HaGiborim brings, and it's brought in halacha that a double. That's why we don't make double knots, even if it's for a few minutes, a few hours.
That's according to everybody, or
Yeah, la halacha. It's brought by many. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. It's brought by many poskim. It's brought in Shulchan Aruch. Shimon Yud Zayin and Hilchas Shabbos.
No, you could just
Can you make a
pull it
second
on
bow?
this-
can I put a bow on top of the bow?
A bow is fine. When you pull it, it just goes out.
That's a double knot. He's asking about a.
No, it's a double bow.
A double bow. Two bows.
Yeah.
You make a bow and then another.
Well, you double the bow. I'm making it now. First one's a bow.
Yeah.
Second one, either be a knot, before it.
There's a knot,
Another bow.
in other words, you have two bows. Two double bows, you don't have a knot underlying.
A bow
You
and
have
a
two ends, and then a bow.
and then another bow, right.
Yeah, and that could be a kesher of an omen.
No. That knot.
No,
Fancier knot.
I understand.
It's not even a knot.
I thought-
It's not a knot. Rabbi Yehuda holds aniva is kshira, but
The first bow you're not allowed to do.
Right.
So you have to wear slip-on Shabbos.
I don't understand. What's the status of the second bow? He's talking about a bow and a bow.
He's just asking stuff.
You tie it once and there's a bow, and then you tie it.
Yeah, but you give a pull and it's over.
This class is brought to you by theyeshiva.net. Please help us continue the classes. Make even a small contribution at www.theyeshiva.net/donate.